his state board for the assemblyman, so he left me for someone better. Not better, but someone else. But I'm really pleased. I have a new chief of staff. She's awesome. And my secretary moved to Wyoming. She left California. So it was a hard transition over the holidays, but we have a new team and they're doing great. So I'm going to introduce them tonight. Well, you won't get to see Denisa because she's not here tonight. She had something else, but get to meet the other three. Hi, Chris.
How you doing?
Good. How are you? Do we have any announcements to give everyone tonight?
Just so you know.
Okay, I'll call on you. When maybe you can come up here to quickly give that update, or?
Sure. When do you want?
Okay, you start.
May we have your attention, please? The library is now closed. We will reopen on tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you for visiting the Sacramento Public Library. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Welcome, everyone. I'm hoping everyone can hear me okay. I think the room is small enough. I thank all of you for coming tonight. It's really raining out there. So before we get started, we usually ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd like to invite everyone to stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone. Well, it's been a while. I'm trying to remember. I guess we were here. Were we here last month? I'm trying to remember. I think we were there. Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think it was here.
It seems like it's been a while, but maybe the holidays and everything. I hope you all had a good holiday season. Do you mind if I ask how many people got a postcard tonight? Is anyone here that got a postcard? Okay, good. Thank you for coming. How many people have never been to one of my meetings? Oh, great. Thank you for coming.
We don't know how to hear about them.
You didn't hear about them? Okay.
The neighbors told me about it, but we don't get any messages on it.
That's the hard part. We have a newsletter that we pass out, that we send out via email once a month. And in that newsletter, I share a little bit about how I'm representing you. Sometimes I cover things I think you might be interested in. If I vote no, I try to explain why I voted no. You know, it's a way for us to get the message out about the meetings. So if you're not on my newsletter and you'd like to be, you can sign up. All we need is your name and your email. This is a sign-up form. I'll pass it around. If you're already on it, don't worry, we've already got your number, but if you can also update your email. You can put update and update your email there.
You can do that online, right?
You can also do it online. You can go to saccounty.gov and follow the go to government and then go to Sue Frost, and the first thing that pops up on my website is, do you want to sign up for the newsletter? And also all the past a lot of the past newsletters, I think all of them, but I'm not sure. You can go back and see the news that I've written in the past. And also, if you're not email oriented, we also, I have an article that I put out every month, and that goes in the print magazine, you know, it makes the rounds to all the local newspapers. So you should be getting it in your local newspaper in Antelope also, so.
That one's shut down.
That one's shut down.
No more, yeah.
So you might want to sign up for the email. The email comes right to your inbox. I try to make it short, sweet, easy read, which isn't easy because I have a tendency to want to go down every rabbit hole and tell you every aspect of it, and it can be too much. So my staff are always saying, no, they're not going to read that. You need to shorten it. So.
Your Facebook page is good.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have help with that. Mr. Scott over here helps me with that too. So thank you. We appreciate that. It's hard to keep up with all the social media and everything, if you know what I mean. So thank you. So this evening I wanted to talk a little bit about our jails. I'm going to cover a little quick update about our county budget. Hello, come on in.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about assisted outpatient treatment, or Laura's Law. How many of you have heard about Laura's Law? So I'll give a quick update on that. And there's a couple of other things that I thought I would update you, and I also wanted to share. Let's start with my district. Does everyone know that we went through the redistricting a while back? So tonight I brought, Scott made us a really nice little map. I can send it around so that you can see that the areas that are dark are my regular old district, and these areas that are kind of aqua were added. Supervisor Cerna gave up the rest of Rio Linda, Alberta. He had a small portion, so now I have all of Rio Linda, Alberta, and I have North Highlands. So I'm really excited about that. I gave up Gold River to Supervisor Desmond, and I took on a little bit more of the unincorporated that abuts Rancho Cordova. So the shape of my district changed a little, and I think you can see it in these maps when I pass it around. So you can just be looking at those while I'm talking. I'm going to start with the jails. For many years, we've been going back and forth, and for those of you that aren't aware, we were sued by the Prison Law Office and Disability Rights California and other attorneys, along with other counties in the state who were sued by these organizations to improve the conditions in our jails. And that's a conversation that started, really, the whole thing started probably in the 90s when the law was passed that required that we improve conditions in the jails. But a lot of counties in California were trying to figure out, how are we going to do that? How can we afford it? In the discussions that we were having in 2017 and 18, when I was first elected in my first term, we were having those conversations, and they were estimating that the cost for capital improvements to fix the ADA and to improve the conditions in the jail would be around $100 million. And that in order to improve the conditions in the jail, which what they wanted us to do is they wanted us to improve the conditions for mental health, people who suffered with mental illness, so that they're not in the main jail population, but they had the resources to be in an appropriate setting, people who need medical care. They wanted us to provide more out-of-cell time. There were some inmates who were not getting the proper out-of-cell time. They wanted us to improve the ADA, which was really hard. You know, the jail downtown that's close to where the courthouses are, where they're awaiting their trial, is like a big, tall cement tower, if you've ever seen it. It's right across from the Board of Supervisors building. And it's hard to make those, widen the doorways because it's all cement. So in order to widen that doorway, you would almost have to, in some cases, you would have to take out a whole nother wall. in order to make that happen. And we had a study, we actually paid for a study to try to understand what that would look like, and they determined that we would lose a third of the capacity of our jails in order to bring it up to the code, the current California code for Americans with Disability Act. And so that, yeah, that was a challenge, because we also have advocates who oftentimes come down to the Board of Supervisors and they advocate for, they want the jails to be smaller or not at all. They don't feel there's a place in our society for jails, that we should be doing more to put into, and I agree with some of what they're saying. You know, we should be doing a better job at, helping people, in their younger years understand, that law enforcement is our friend, and, helping them with their education and fostering, community. And there's all kinds of things that we could be doing, hopefully, that would reduce the number of criminals in our society. But at the end of the day, I kind of think we need jails. Sorry, but I do. I think.
Also incentivize crime, when they can steal $950 a day, and first you get a ticket. I mean, they want to eliminate the jails, but you incentivize people to become criminals, because there's pretty much no penalty now.
Right. Did everyone hear that?
Yeah.
You get a property crime at your home, it's not going to come out. They'll tell you to go out and fill out a report, or go online and fill out a report. There's virtually almost no penalty for crime anymore, unless it's a huge crime.
Well, that was something that happened over the last decade and a half. We had AB 109 and Prop 47 and Prop 57, and essentially what happened is, while they were emptying the state prison institutions, because they couldn't afford it, and they couldn't house the number of criminals, then they rewrote how we look at crime, and they changed felonies into misdemeanors, and they actually did make a law that said you can steal up to $950 and it's a misdemeanor. And after they passed that, I have told you guys in meetings before, I keep telling, it was the most amazing night. I was in Rite Aid, and someone actually did that. She loaded, and it was just a regular looking woman. She looked like you and me. I mean, she had loaded it all up, and she's walking out. No, I didn't do that. I knew that would get a laugh. She was walking out, and I said, she's to the store person, and she said, "Ma'am, you need to pay for that." And she said, "No, I'm not going to pay." And she just walked out, and I said, all of us, everyone in the store went, it's real. It's really real. And they said, we're not supposed to engage. Our company has told us don't engage. It's a cost of business. It's in our insurance, blah, blah, blah. Well, I do want to have hats off to Assemblyman Josh Hoover. Was it Hoover?
Yes, ma'am. Thank
you. This is Forrest Johnson, my special assistant, and Scott Borges, special assistant. And I'm sorry, Denisa Martiani, she's Romanian, but we call her Denisa Martian, is not with us tonight. She had another commitment. She was going to come, but we'll bring her next time. But anyway, Assemblyman Hoover just put a bill before the public, I think it was the Public Safety Committee at the Assembly, to roll back that law, and it didn't even make it through committee. It got squashed. So, but I applaud his effort, and I think it's wonderful. So, yes.
Why don't we get out of the jail business? In other words, let the city of Sacramento take that jail over. Because the problem for the taxpayers is we're just a constant target of lawsuits. There's attorneys out there that just want to suck our money, suing the jail all the time.
I'm not sure why you think the city of Sacramento would want that.
Yeah, I don't think they would either. Because they'd say,
we can just give that away.
We're going to be the next one to get sued.
I
But
know.
it just seems like we're just a target for, we're a pocket to pick.
Well, it is difficult. I can tell you, I did tour the jails when I first got elected, and I really honestly feel that the jails did need improved conditions. Yeah, that we do need to improve the conditions in our jails. And for years, I've been Sheriff Jones would bring proposals for, grants that we could get. It had required matching funds, and I remember making the motion and not getting a second because the other board members basically said it costs too much, we can't afford this. But then, at the end of the day, we were backed into a corner by December 22 to a place where we had made this agreement. We had the consent decree that we agreed on was a lawsuit settlement, and if we didn't settle, they were going to sue us and we were going to lose. Every other county lost. And so at the end of the day, after a couple years of us not being able to figure out what we were...
Who was suing it?
The Prison Law Office, Americans with ADA, American Disability Act, other attorneys were suing lots of counties throughout California. And every county, when we initially were sued, when they initially came after us, we kind of looked at all the others to see how it was going for them. It wasn't going well. They were all losing. So we knew we were going to have to try to settle. And that was why we tried to, because it could have been, the requirements could have been much harder, much more expensive on us. And we basically told them we can't afford, we're doing the best we can, but we don't know if we can afford that. And they wanted us to do it much quicker. We asked for a 6-year period. They wanted it in 2 years. But in the end, we were able to negotiate what we felt was the best we were going to get. And then a couple more years went by, and we were backed into December 2020 when the attorneys who were watching us, seeing if we're making progress on our agreement, said if you don't do something by December 22, end of December 22, we'll call for a federal receivership, which means they would come in and tell us what to do and we would pay for it. They would make the decisions about what we're going to do.
And we, money, how can you pay for it?
Well,
Raise taxes.
I think they call it debt. You just add to the debt.
Actually, the
And
federal
so-
receiver orders the county to pay it, and the county pays it. If that means raising your taxes, they raise your taxes. You did this to the state.
So you definitely don't want to be in a federal receivership. You don't want to lose control of what we felt like we would know better what's good for our county than someone far removed in another state. And so we were able to, on a 3-2 vote, make a decision. We are going to be adding another tower. It will be right next to the downtown jail. It'll be about 3 stories high. There will be a floor that is dedicated to criminally insane or people with mental health issues. There will be a floor that's dedicated to medical. In case you don't know, since they started releasing people from the state prisons, we have a lot of people that were transferred down to the jail system that was designed for, a 1 or 2 night stay or a week stay. We now have long-term hire criminals in our jail system, and they're aging in our jail. The average is around 13 years. And so we're in a situation where they're aging in our jail, which means when they're in our jail, we have to provide the medical, dialysis, heart surgery, whatever the case may be. We're on the hook for it. And so we'll have a place that's more suitable for people who are ill. And then the bottom floor will be a new intake that's ADA, qualifies with for people with disabilities, and it'll be a better, all-around better. I think it's a great solution, and it'll be good. There will be more to come as time goes by, but aside from what I told you about ADA and time out of cell and mental and medical, there's also suicide prevention. We're supposed to improve our statistics on suicide and deaths within the jail. So I want to talk a little bit about our budget. This year, it's around $4.6 billion budget. We haven't really begun. We've sort of begun. We had one board meeting where we came together with a resolution on what our priorities would be in this budget. And I want to give a hats off to our she's been with us for a couple years now, but Ann Edwards, who's our county executive, she pulls the board together, knowing how different we are. we all have different constituencies. She pulls us together and we set priorities that will set the stage for our budget discussions. Our budget comes in June, and then we have a true-up in September because there's bills and income that come in after June, and then we true it up in September usually. The budget priorities for this year did not change from last year, really. We want to deliver excellent services, so we want to continue to focus on delivering good services and remaining compliant with all the regulations we have that are coming from the state and federal government regarding our money. And for those of you who may not realize, probably less than 17% of our budget is discretionary. Most of the money is in separate, we have probably over 80 accounts that are like a trust account with set-aside funds and the funds that go through that account are dedicated to certain special programs or, enterprises. Yeah. Reserves is one thing that in the last couple of years we've done really well with. Historically, we haven't, when I first got elected, we had less than 1% in reserves for our entire budget, which would, at the time I calculated, it would get us maybe 8 days. If something catastrophic happened, we could go 8 days before we would have to start laying people off. Just saying, we were way below what is recommended for reserves for that size of a budget. So that's always been a priority of mine, and now it seems like our county executive is on board with that, and the rest of the board is on board with that. And we all were able to add significantly to our reserves in the last year, and I'm sure this year we'll hope to do that again. It's improved our credit. We have paid off, there were some loans that we took from some of our internal funds, which is not good, doesn't make you look good, through the 2008 crisis that for years we were paying on, and we got those paid off in the last year or two. So our credit has improved, so we're doing better with that, and I'm happy about that. I want to say, like we have advocates regarding no one should be in jail. We also have advocates for we should have more of a say in the budget process. And they came down for several years, and so what the county did is we set up a public process to teach people about the county budget, and I don't know how many people really engaged in that, but it was really, really well done. They kind of gave them a better idea of how the budget works and how complicated it is and how you can't just spend money on whatever you want. Used to be back in the 60s, maybe in the 70s, I've talked to Sandra Smoley, who used to be a supervisor back then, for anyone who remembers that long back. Yeah, she was your 10 mother? Are you serious? That's awesome. Well, she's still alive and well, but she told me that, she said, Sue, did you know back in the 70s, if we wanted a building, we just built it. We could do whatever we wanted. We had money. Well, we don't today. We don't have that. We don't have choices. We have to carefully figure out how we're going to work it. Something's wrong. Something's upside down. A lot of the money, I call it the color of money. We pay all these taxes, and then they make all these rules that say you can spend the money, but these are the priorities you have to set, and this is what the money will qualify to be used toward. And so it kind of limits, it steers what we can do within our communities, and we don't have full discretion on how to spend that money. But that's a whole nother subject which we could go on for a long time. I do want to say one of the things I was concerned about when we were going to increase this public process and have the community involved in the conversation, I made the comment, well, I hope we're going to involve people from my district, because in my district, people don't have time to come down here, sit all day waiting for a 2-minute advocacy comment. They have lives and jobs, and they can't do that. They're not able to do that. But, if we're going to have, public involvement in the budget, I hope we're going to make sure that my district has a voice in that too. And they did a really good job with that at the county. The staff, hired a company who did a focused group analysis, and what they said, I don't know that much about statistics, but I guess, if you're taking a survey, you can do a survey with a small number of people that are from all the different areas, and it can be an indicator of the general temperature of what people are thinking. Well, here's what they did. FM3 was the company. They had 8 people from the cities, 10 from the unincorporated, 8 from the lower income, and 10 from not low income. And they went through a public process, and then they asked them questions. They basically said they enjoy Sacramento. They have concerns about the cost of living. They have intense concern about homelessness. And also increased crime and violence is a key concern. I want to say that the other thing that I thought was meaningful, different than before, was that this year there was a little shift, and where in the years before the top priorities were homelessness and housing, this year the top priority was crime, and then they were concerned about support for children and seniors, and homeless and housing. So, and they were all really close together, so they were almost not separate, but except that crime took a little shift up, which I thought was interesting. And I'm getting that, I would say that's the temperature that I'm hearing from my staff who manage a lot of the customer service calls, and from the calls that I get and the conversations I have in my district. So crime is definitely an issue. It is, those policies change our world, and I think I totally agree with you that the policy has had a negative impact. Laura's.
Is there any discussion? We went from $60 million a year spent towards the homeless to $181 million a year. Gigantic leap. I mean, there's your $100 million for fixing the jails right there. But we only spent $20 million on roads. And as a 29-year Antelope resident, Antelope Road is falling apart, Watt Avenue is falling apart, and that can keeps getting kicked down the road and kicked down the road. And it's like, you almost feel when you're at the gas pump that you ought to be exempt from the tax, because the tax you're paying every time you fill up certainly isn't fixing the roads.
Well, did everyone hear that? Can everyone hear? Okay. Well, I do want to qualify that. Yes, a few years back when I checked, it was around 59 or 60 million a year that we were spending on homeless programs. Last year, our budget, the big concern to me was that we were balancing the budget with 181 million in one-time money. I don't know about you guys, but actually my parents didn't really teach me a lot about money, but probably the only thing I learned was my dad said, Susie, don't depend on other people to take care of you. You take care of yourself. But he didn't tell me, you don't balance your budget, your house budget on one-time money. You don't go out and buy a program that has future bills with one-time money. You make sure you have the money to carry it through the first 3 to 5 years until you at least know if the program is going to work. I can tell you that in the last couple of years with COVID, we have had the CARES Act and ARPA, which is like a beautiful rainfall of money all over the world, all over the United States. I mean, it is one-time money, and it does have the color of money, a condition on it. It has to go toward programs, it has to go toward something that was, that COVID caused a deficit, and so it could qualify. There were only certain things you could put that toward, and so a lot of that money went for one-time capital improvements to set up shelters or, set up programs that we're going to try and get a handle on this exacerbated homeless situation that we have, which I'm just going to put a little commercial in. I think a big part of it is serious mental illness and drugs, fentanyl, heroin, and meth, and probably others that I don't even know about. But I think Chris knows more than I do, working in the PVID. But, so it did go way up, but I think a lot of that was with, the one-time money that had a condition on it, and you had to use it or lose it, and we were trying to figure out, okay, how can we improve the situation, which was hugely exacerbated over the last few years. So
People, they look at the money and they say, okay, well, what did we get for the money? I mean, do the math. If you got $181 million and 10,000 homeless, the math is that's $18,000 a person. Could have gone down to Happy Days RV and bought them, literally every one of them, a little trailer.
yeah, but that
You're
doesn't
off the
fix
street.
it. Just so you know, I'll get you in a second, sir. Just so you know, the average homeless person is costing us around $59,000 to $60,000 a year, up to over $100,000 a year. Homelessness is not inexpensive, and so some of these shelter situations that we are opting into is going to reduce our cost significantly if those people select to go into the shelter. You cannot.
They don't have a choice. They shouldn't have a choice.
Well, you
So they
can't.
have two choices,
Okay,
right? They go to the shelter and get the help they say they need.
I'm going
or
to encourage.
They move it on.
Yeah, I'm going to encourage everyone to raise your hand so we can
Okay,
maintain
I'm sorry,
control.
I just-
But I will say it is not illegal to be homeless, and we cannot force someone who has not committed a crime into a situation. We can't force them to accept
Aren't they breaking the
it.
rules when they're out,
No, it's
defecating in
not.
the streets or littering or loitering or any of those? Don't we have laws against that?
We do, and I'm going to share a little bit about some of what we're doing, but the gentleman in the back has been very polite, raising his hand. I want to address you.
I wanted to add something about the roads. During the drought, our roads got pounded, there were probably cracks in the roads, and now that the wet weather has come, moisture's gotten through those cracks into the underlayment of the road and turned it into soup. And then when vehicles pound over that damaged portion of the road, the cracks widen, potholes form, and so on. This has been a building problem since I watched the Board of Supervisors meeting on television years ago, and the fellow who's head of the county road department said, well, at the rate we're spending on road repair, it will take us 70 years to fix all the roads in the county that the county's responsible for. And the life of the road work we're doing is at best 40 years. So we're just constantly falling further and further behind. The drought really aggravated the road problem.
That's what I really like about the people in Antelope. They're super smart. When I was running for county supervisor, I made an appointment with the budget officer because I didn't think I was going to survive the debate. I was so scared I couldn't even see straight. And I needed more information. And so he was kind enough to sit down with me, and at that time I also sat down with the Department of Transportation. And at that time in 2017, the deferred maintenance on county roads was $450 million. 3 years later, 18, 19, 20, in 2020, around 2020, it was $795 million. So that kind of gives you an idea that there's what they call the road. Does everyone know what PCI is? Pavement Condition Index. It's how they judge how good the road is, if it's in good condition. And the PCI Pavement Condition Index, goes from 0 to 100. If it gets below 50, I think 59 or 56, it's considered fair. And at that point, it's just kind of starting to crackle, and the worse it gets, the really exponentially more it costs to fix the roads, because you then have to grate everything off and take it all the way down to the dirt and rebuild the whole road, because you can't just put an overlay on a moving foundation. What you just described, what water does to bad roads, is it exacerbates the problem. And we are aware of that. Over the past 2 years in the county, we have actually consciously voted to add 20 million last year and the year before to the budget to just for road repairs. Now, we have a problem, and this I know because I started in my little career, my little county city council. I was on city council in 2012, elected 2012, installed 2013, and at that time, the federal government had just handed out the plan that they were going to hand down the management of the roads to the states. Sort of like what they did decades ago with mental health. And then the states kind of passed a lot of that over time down to the counties, and also to increase taxes ask the taxpayers to pay more to figure out how we're going to pay for this. And this is, what I think is a downright crying shame is that politicians over public servants over decades. Roads are not sexy. Fixing, overlays on roads isn't sexy. There's other things they want to put it towards so that they can get their name on the building, or, I'm just saying that they have not prioritized the maintenance of roads. And now we have a situation where it is not just roads, it is roads, water infrastructure, gas infrastructure, electric. There's a whole list of, infrastructure deferred maintenance. And the challenge we have now is how can we work together with all those organizations to maybe fix them at the same time. So we don't fix the road and then find out we have a water leak under there and we have to dig up the road, and now it has cuts in it which the water can get into and downgrade the road, and that's what all those different entities are working together to try to plan around how we catch up. I think our head of DOT at the time when we did our first 20 million said if we do 20 million a year extra within 15 years, we can get our average PCI, we can get it up to maintain it at 70%, which is really good. And we can actually make some decisions to not just pick the very worst roads to fix, but do some overlays on the roads that aren't so bad to begin to get a handle on managing the road maintenance so that it doesn't get so much more expensive in the future, and start to get a handle on it. So the county has a plan and we're trying really hard, but there are communities who have not had the roads. I know people that said, I lived there for 40, what did you say, 40 years? They lived there for 40 years and the road's never been fixed and it's fallen apart into crackling.
35 on Steam Drive and it's gravel.
It's alligated for about a quarter mile.
Yeah, my road was 28 PCI before they fixed it, and it was down to falling apart, basically. I live in Citrus Heights, but I'll get you in a second, sir. Yes, but I do want to say that the taxpayers have to demand more from us. You can't just vote for us and send us to, you have to watch what we say and what we do and try to see if we're representing you well. And if we're not, you need to vote someone else in that will. But I don't know how to impact that. Now, you were next and then I'll get you.
This is kind of related. Don Julio got repaved and resurfaced and widened because they had a lot of construction going on there. And at that time, it was shut down. It advertised it was going to be shut down for about 4 weeks, and it ended up being shut down for, I think, 2.5 months. And while that was going on, Poker Lane was, it made it very difficult to get through. There was lines of traffic just going out. The school let out, and the lines went literally all the way back to where the school is. Well, Poker Lane goes all the way through to North Highlands, or to North Antelope. And that was closed, because there's a barrier going across that. And so we couldn't use that road, but that's a county road. And the reason I know it's a county road is because the county paid, I don't know how many millions, to resurface that road so that the 10 to 12 houses that live along that road could have a new road. But nobody else in Antelope could use that road. What do you have to say to that? Why is that road blocked off? The rest of the taxpayers are paying for it to be resurfaced, but it only affects the benefit of 10 people. Let's just say $100,000 of benefit because it's $1 million a mile.
Well, I mean, I don't know, I mean,
I raised
I would
this
have to
issue
go-
a year ago and it was never answered.
yeah, I would have to go back and check to find out what the, you know, what money, kind of money improved Poker Lane. What I
It was a
can tell
county
you,
road.
or, well, it was a county road, right?
Yeah, it's a county road and it was a county crew. I looked in the side of the truck.
Yeah, but
So-
the point I'm trying to make, you
Right.
wanted an explanation, and I'm gonna tell you that when I first got elected, they gave us a list, they gave us a big binder of the CIP, you know, the 5-year plan on roads and capital improvements and what is gonna come next, who's in line, first in line to get fixed, and we were so excited. We went around telling everyone, your road is this is coming this year, you know, and it's like, we found out, well, no, we actually need $2 more million to fund that one, and that might be a few more years, so we don't know where that money is gonna come from, and this and that. So it's complicated. Some of the funding does come from developers. If there's a new development, oftentimes they push the infrastructure requirements onto the developers, and they have to spend millions of dollars before they even start building those rooftops, which that cost, by the way, has to be factored into the cost of the homes. But what I want to say is, it's not like the developer, it may not be that the developer was fixing Poker Lane for those houses. It might have been because that development's coming in, that's money that can be partnered with other money to make this work. I mean, it's a constant, how can we maximize what we can do, and what can we do? Like in my district, when they come to us and say, what are your priority, what roads do you want us to focus on? And we always say, we want to give love to every part, I want to give love to every part of my district. Every community in my district needs to feel the love. And then we usually go for like a bigger road that more people travel on, just because more people will be impacted by that. Instead of maybe a community that's a neighborhood in one small area that impacts only 6 people, we might go for a road that people commute on when they go to work, and they don't want to go through a landmine going to work. That's the logic, because there's not enough money for the roads.
Right, and I just want to follow up. You benefited.
He's next, and then you, then you.
Let me just follow up on it.
So you can relax.
This repair benefited 12 houses, and by keeping that road closed, you made it much more difficult for everybody else in the Antelope area right about Olive Grove School to be able to get out of there. If there had been an emergency, you would have had people really screwed. So if you could find out why that road is closed,
Yeah.
Scott,
Yep.
Merry Christmas, you got a job.
I would get Scott's,
I have his card.
okay, yeah,
But the
but
problem
are
is
you gonna
that-
email that question
Yeah.
to him, so?
Yeah, I will. But
Yeah,
a year
'cause we
ago,
can
I
research
emailed
it and
you the
find out.
question, and I
Yeah.
never got a reply. So, I
You
can tell
emailed me a question and never got a reply?
Your executive assistant. I never got a reply.
Well, what was the question?
I just gave it to you.
Oh, okay, we're gonna get the answer.
Yeah.
Scott is
Yeah.
gonna get the
It's
answer.
branded to you now.
Yeah,
so-
no, that's fine.
No, I promise him.
Let him answer.
We'll do
Okay.
that.
I sit on, so as you may know, I sit on the.
Stand up and introduce yourself.
I'll take it.
Let him hear you.
I can answer your question. I sit on the Antelope Community Project Advisory Committee
Okay, sure, great.
that basically goes through those plans for all those buildings. And our last meeting was about a new housing complex that is getting ready to be built right on the other side, the barrier you're talking about.
Right,
The
on
road.
Poker Lane.
On Poker Lane.
Okay,
we went out there to look at it, because citizens of those homes that you were talking about were up in arms in this room here, complaining about, issues associated with the new housing complex. The question you asked, I asked, of the city planner, who was there having a conversation. That road is closed off, because that was an agreement between the developer of Bear Ranch and the county about who's responsible for that road. And because the builder wouldn't take the responsibility beyond that barrier to outside, it fell to the county, and the county had to close it off.
But then they spent county money to resurface it.
They spent Bear Ranch's money to resurface.
Well, okay, they may have paid,
That
but they used the
was,
county.
that was
crew to
part
do it.
of the money from that complex to fix that road, like you said.
Yeah.
So,
I've
the
seen
new
this.
developer is talking about not even opening that either. So,
That was changing, the new dynamic, if my memory serves, is there were gonna be so many more people and it was gonna change the dynamic of the roads there, right?
but they are not planning on opening that road.
Ever? Ever?
Because they don't want to be responsible for the maintenance of the road.
But they aren't, the county paid for it.
No.
Okay, well,
The county.
okay.
doesn't-
Let's handle it,
Reduce.
Scott is
I
gonna,
will-
yeah, thank you, you knew more about it than I did, I
The
appreciate.
county
What's your name
uses the
again?
word Temporary.
Timber, yeah, oh, the football guy. Football guy. He's a football hero. You guys know that. Hey. Okay, so, thanks, Tim. Scott, you can get, follow up, because we could be here all night with that, and we still wouldn't have the right, I want to, satisfy his needs. You're next.
I think you hit a little bit of it on the nutshell. I think that most of the people in Antelope are just concerned with keeping our neighborhood up. We don't want to see our neighborhood go into decline. And we pay our taxes, we pay our tax dollars and stuff like that. And, we don't want to see all of our tax money go to make the criminals comfortable and make, and do everything under the sun for the homeless and all that. And meanwhile, we have terrible roads, our green belts are dying out, this place is going into disrepair. All I'm saying is that the taxpayers feel like their rights are being trampled on because they're the ones putting out the money that are paying the taxes, and it's getting spent on the benefit of others rather than on our neighborhood.
So, I'm really, I appreciate that because I hear that. I mean, that we all have rights, not just the homeless people. And
Not just the criminals.
well, one thing that we did at the county that I should share with you, I'm glad you brought that up. We passed an ordinance a couple months ago that is called the Critical Infrastructure Ordinance. When we passed to approve the safe stay, does everyone know about the safe stay in North Highlands? Okay, for those of you who've never been to a meeting, I can pass around some pictures of the little aluminum sheds that there's going to be a safe stay community on Watt. I'll just pass this around. But the thing I wanted to tell you is, I'll pass these here and these here down this side. We have this situation that happened in around October 2018, whereby the Ninth Circuit Court deemed that we cannot move homeless people unless they're committing a crime, or they're a public health issue, or they're killing vegetation, or impacting the levees in a negative way, or, there's certain conditions, or unless we have a place we can send them. And so we are building these aluminum safe stay, these are little units that have a locking door. They're made out of panels. The panel, it gets kicked in, we can just replace one panel, so it's affordable. It has an air conditioner and a heater, so it's a place where someone can go and feel safe, have their stuff safe and feel safe.
Is it to live
No, it's for a transitional, it's intended as a 90-day transition as we treat whatever your dilemma is, whether it's drugs or mental health and getting on your medication or getting a job training or
So it has a kitchen?
social
A toilet?
services. No, there will be communal restrooms, there will be wraparound services, there's a commercial kitchen there where we'll partner with other service providers that will help wrap services around these people and transition them hopefully through that situation into a temporary shelter, into a permanent sustainable housing living situation where we get them hooked up with a job. And there are people crossing over from homelessness that way. At the same time, we have one in off of Florin, Old Town Florin, one on the other side of Florin, and now one on Watt Avenue and what? It's around McClellan. It's not south of, is it north of McClellan? I think it's north of McClellan. By Longview? Okay. It's a big, huge building, so it's going to be inside a building. In fact, they're working on the architectural design of that right now, and the water alarms and all that. So at the same time we were doing that, we passed an ordinance called the Critical Infrastructure Ordinance, and we also within that ordinance was a rule that would say you cannot set up camp after sunset in the American River Parkway, between sunset and sunrise. We will be coming back with resolutions that will designate critical infrastructure. What that looks like is maybe a sidewalk on Madison that someone pitches a tent and you have to walk out onto Madison to get around them. You can't, because there's no pathway to the sidewalk. That's critical infrastructure. They can't set up home there. They can't do that. Everyone should be able to walk on that. Another one would be like in front of an elementary school or a library, or we're going to be slowly rising that list of areas that we consider to be schools, elementary schools. Critical infrastructure, we cannot have homeless people living there. In order to do that with the Ninth Circuit Court decision, we felt that if we were doing our due diligence to try to set up as many of these shelters as possible, then we can have a place to send them, and we can, actually, we are trying. We're doing the best we can. And so we're not planning to kick everyone off the parkway into the neighborhoods. We're planning to lift up the critical infrastructure resolutions as we begin to get more shelter space, and hopefully that will come together and get these people off the streets, out of the businesses, out of the residential, and hopefully this will improve the situation. I want to say it is not illegal to be homeless. Some people are there by choice, and we can't make them come, but if they want to come, there's a path out. And the good thing about
what I was trying to say was there shouldn't be too many options. There should be a couple of options.
It shouldn't be the way it is, but that's okay. Who was next?
But again, with these
you were next, right?
Yeah, you know what? Tell him to keep his hand down.
Okay, I'm going to go for hands raised politely.
It's not a show between you and Sue Frost, sir. Excuse me.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
That's my fault. I
I'm
should have
frustrated.
controlled that.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I've lost a lot of faith in Sacramento County. These people pay a lot of money to live here. Now, 5 years ago, Governor Brown promised our roads are going to get fixed. I've resigned myself to the fact that we will never see our roads get fixed. We got 4/10 of a mile repaved on Wadega Road. Whoop-de-doo. Watt Avenue is a heavy commute road. It's shambles. My windshield is constantly breaking on that road, and I'm getting tired of it. We're not fixing roads. Let's rescind. We can't rescind the taxes because the state is too stupid. Let's rescind the vehicle registration fees back to when Governor Brown brought them up. Let's get Hoover or someone on the boat, on the wagon, and say, let's start with this. Let's give our people their money back because we're not getting what we deserve.
I agree. I believe services are being squeezed out by a growing administrative government that is very costly. I don't think we brought the SB1 map of you know, we had a map a couple years ago when they were going to pass that SB1. Does any of you remember it? It was like this big, huge map, and it showed all the ways the flow of the money, and it went in so many directions. It's like unbelievable, the administrative nightmare to manage all that money going in so many different directions. So it is squeezing out services, I agree, but I don't know how to change it.
I make really good money in the state of California, in this state. And I'm getting ready to retire and take my retirement out of the state of California. I'm done. By the way, I'm so frustrated with
sad.
the way this meeting's being handled. I'm going to leave, so I'm sorry. But really, as far as homelessness
sorry,
goes,
too.
I have no empathy for the homeless. You go down by on Roseville Road in Antelope, those are not homeless, those are bums. They've been there for 20 years. They're just a bunch of bums, and they keep walking across the street, holding up traffic. They stand on the road with their signs. They're hoodlums. They're bums. Get rid of them. And I've lost sympathy for homelessness. I won't even look at this homeless. I'm not paying any more money for services we don't get. I'm sorry. I'm
Don't be sorry, I understand. But this might be a good time for Chris Evans with the PBID to give an
Well, what
update.
kind of lead-in is that?
You're an expert on homelessness. Come on up here where they can see you.
I think the frustration is 15 years ago, you see a poor soul standing out there with a sign, and the sign said, "We'll work for food." Now they stand out there, work isn't even part of the equation, it's just give me your free money that you've already paid taxes on. I love, there's two different jokers.
Let's try to get a handle on the meeting if we
Yeah,
can.
let me give
Raise
you a-
your hand if you want to talk, and we'll.
My
if you
name's
have a
Chris
question.
Evans, I'm the Executive Director of the Antelope Property Business Community District, and what it runs from just north of Winco on Wallaga down to Elkhorn. That district is a district that was created by the business property owners, not the businesses, the property owners. They agreed to pay an extra tax. They form what they call a PBID, Property Business Improvement District. They take that tax, which is collected by the county, but they're not silly. They don't trust the county to collect the money. And so the county gives them back. Now, actually, it's a cooperation. The county gives us back that money, and then the board of directors, made up of the property owners within that district, decide how to spend that money within the district. I'm the executive director. I'm the guy that's out here every single day. There's not a homeless person in Antelope that I don't know. I know their front story. I know their back story. I know everything about them. We spend about 96 hours a week, $200,000 a year on security just in that stretch of Wallaga Avenue alone.
So explain that to me more, it's like from...
Thank you for coming.
Go from Winco on Wallaga Road, go from the Winco Shopping Center down to the Elkhorn. That stretch alone is the ABC district. Inside that district, we spend $200,000 a year
I'll pass this around.
on security. We spend,
For the patrols, I see.
good. I had the cars rebranded about a year ago, so it says on the side they're white now with ABC District, so you realize who they are. We stop about $2,000 a week in theft from Bel Air. Okay?
Read the stories.
Okay, so it's a constant. The other job I also have, by the way, is kind of unique. I also run the Drug Addiction Recovery and Homeless Outreach Team for the River District in downtown. So when you see the streets in downtown with the tents on A Street, B Street, 14th Street, Ahern, where it's nothing but drug after drug addict after drug addict, that's where I play every single day. I'll be down there at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And the thing about it is we run a program down there where there are people who do want to work their way back. Not a lot, but the city is running a really cool program where I get 6 to 8 people and I get 2 years to take them from the streets to employment. And then we've got 100% average right now. There are people who do want to work their way back, but there are a lot of drug addicts out there right now. The easiest way to change this is to change the laws. We're just operating under the laws. The courts are telling us we can't put people in jail, so the judges aren't letting us put people in
How do
jail.
we change the laws?
You vote. You stop voting.
We vote.
Well, you got to start leaning on your politicians. As long as they say it's okay to steal $950 worth of product, we can't stop them. I mean, they walk out the door and say, "Give me a ticket." Where everybody knows this, nothing's going to happen. So you're depending on good people.
It's a tough one.
So I will tell you this, the wonderful thing about the ABC district is we've been doing it for 4 years now. We're up for renewal, so the business property owners are literally, right now, this week, making a decision on whether they want to continue. They're in the petition process. And it looks like they're going to. So we're going to have 10 more years where you're going to continue to have enhanced patrols. We have 2 guys out here 8 hours a day cleaning the streets. You see all
What's the
the...
population of this district, or?
Oh, well, I've only got 110 businesses and 48 property owners, so it's not a huge district.
Okay, so
Chris,
it's
it's
business.
basically the 4 corners, right?
Yeah.
Rite Aid, Bel Air, Arco Shop, gas station, and then Chevron.
Right, and then
Willerga,
all the way down to
Ford.
99-cent store and Goodwill. All
That's
the way,
North Highlands, though.
all the way down to Wall-Agro.
But they go to North Highlands then. Trust me.
What's that? With the-
Antelope Road is the boundary between Antelope and North Highlands.
Oh, okay, well, again, I don't know where the boundary is between Elm and North Highlands, but for our district, it's Willerga. In Willerga Road. But anyhow, we have 2 guys cleaning maintenance, so when you see homeless stuff left on the streets, it's usually there maybe a day or 2. And the difference is, look at what happens along Willerga Road, and look what happens along Roseville Road. That's the difference between a PBIC. And so you should be grateful for the business property owners who are all paying the extra tax. Yes, sir.
Just wondering, when you find a homeless person in Antelope,
Yep.
and you ask them to move on,
Right.
do you tell them to go to the parks?
No. Here's what happens. We have a policy of compassionate compliance, and it's a written policy that our board has endorsed. We reach out to them and we find out what they need, what their needs are, what they think they need. And I'm telling you honestly, most of the time what they think they need is met. I don't have any. So then we come to the compliance part. And every Thursday in our district, behind the donut shop, we bring in a special group of people, and anybody who's in need can come there between 9 and noon on Thursdays. We average about 7 to 8 people a week. We get driver's license for them. Most important thing they need to get services is a driver's license. Number 1 thing they lose is a driver's license. So we literally take them and get them driver's license, we get them IDs, we help them get the stuff they need to get into the county system. And once we get them into the county system, then they're obviously going to go to other places because there's no place for them to go in Antelope. So if they want services, they're automatically going to be let out of Antelope because all of the services are someplace else. But the only ones that you're going to see here, for the most part, are the people who are tied to the community. I mean, I can run through the names, but I won't. But all of them have ties to the community. They grew up here, their family's here, somebody lives here, there's a reason why they're here. And I don't care how many times you tell them to go stay in a shelter somewhere else, they're going to stay in this community because this is where they live. And we're down to about 7 or 8 of them now. It's not like there's 50 or 60 in Antelope. I've got thousands in the River District. I got like 8 up here.
One of those,
I'm sorry.
She had a question.
Hi, so my question has nothing to do with homelessness. I was here at the last meeting. I was the one who got hit by a driver who was under the influence of narcotics and alcohol and ran a red light, all of those elements. I know that when I was last here, you had mentioned that law enforcement in Antelope, that's my concern, is the law enforcement in Antelope. And I know that you mentioned that a lot of it is dependent on the fact that we don't have, personnel. We don't have a lot of people that want to become law enforcement right now because of different factors, budget, benefits, that type of thing. I work for the school district, so I totally understand that, lack of recruitment and all of that, benefits and everything. What I want to know is, and I'm going to come here to every meeting to find out, just to get an update of how that's going. Have you had the opportunity, is there, an increase in recruitment? Do we have more funds that are going to be allocated? We have more presence in Antelope. I appreciate the ABC, the patrol, and all of that that's happening. That's wonderful. I'd love to see more law enforcement in our community as well.
So let me speak to that. It's going better. A big reason why we were short on deputies was because of COVID. We didn't have our normal training program. We recruit out of the training, and then they get all trained up and they get on the job, and then some other law enforcement agency says, we'll pay you more and give you a better pension, and we don't have as much crime here. And they say, wow, that sounds good, and they go. So, I mean, it's a constant recruitment effort. And we have started back, the sheriff has started back their academy. They're catching up quickly. So that is, it's going better, but there is a little bit of slowdown in people applying for these positions in law enforcement. And I think you can possibly imagine, you know, we have an anti-police environment, but it is going better. And thank you for coming. I think this woman has.
So I think my question is for you. The culvert on Esteem and Antelope, right there where the old Antelope, where it curves right there. One thing, that's the only culvert for flood protection that I see that's not fenced in. And we constantly have homeless people there, sometimes flopped out on the street.
You're talking about right there on Alberta?
It's right on Antelope and Esteem Drive.
Okay.
There's a culvert there and it needs to be fenced in.
I'll look at it.
Yeah.
It's not really something the PBID does, but we can certainly work with county staff or something to get that done.
See, I'm a registered civil engineer and I design those things.
Oh, very cool.
And the amount of space behind this thing and the guy's trash in front of the thing, if they get together sometime, we're gonna flood upstream. We will flood. And I will be down at the Board of Supervisors saying, I told you so.
I think if that's a private property,
I don't know if it is.
I think you should get Scott's or Forrest's card, and they can do some research with county planning and code enforcement, who can come look at it and see if there's something that we can reach out to the owner and have them fix that situation. So.
And then just one additional thing, we have kids crossing between Alberta and Willerga. There's no crosswalks between those on that Antelope Road.
Okay,
And
that's
kids going across there to school. They're going across with 60-mile-an-hour traffic.
Yeah, that is also something to bring up with the staff, and they can reach out to the Department of Transportation and see if there's something we can do to improve that
We
situation.
also have old ladies crossing.
Who could that be?
And there's no sidewalk.
Now, careful.
Okay, I'm going to raise your hand if you're going to have a question. Those are the last ones because I want to respect everyone's time. It's 7:05.
I have a quick one.
So, let's start with a quick one. There was
For
another
Chris.
gentleman in the back. I won't forget you.
Just wanted to know about your meetings. They haven't been happening lately, and I wondered why.
Well, they have the last
The
Wednesday.
ABC?
Yeah, the ABC district is the last Wednesday of every week at every month at 3 o'clock. And it's a board meeting, it's open to the public. You can follow abcdistrict.com. And by the way, if you go to abcdistrict.com, we got a brand new website that just went up. It's not even completely beta yet, but by the weekend, you're going to see a really cool new video up too about the renewal and what the district does and things that we do to keep it safe.
Do you have a card?
I do, I'll get you one.
Okay, and we're going to get to all these questions, but Scott's going to give you a quick update on the roads that are going to get soon to be repaved.
So, there is a map going around right now. It's going to show you the areas that have been repaved in the last 2 years, and then those are the green highlighted areas.
Is this the
And then-
green?
Yes.
That's it?
There's two green,
No,
yeah.
it's
there's
the
two
orange,
greens.
isn't it?
No,
No, the
orange.
orange is to be started.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
So there's
supposed to
two
be
areas
orange.
of greens. Now,
The green is
the
one.
orange, those are all slated to be started. Now, there's the Elkhorn to Don Julio, that is oh yeah, sorry. But SAC DOT actually applied for a grant and got it, but it's one of those things that have conditions. It's got to have bike lanes, it's got to have walking, pedestrian infrastructure, it's got to have center divides with shrubs. That's what is kind of taking long. And then there's also an important one that's Antelope to Elkhorn on Block. That one was approved by the County Board of Supervisors, $4.5 million project, but they're using...
What's the mileage on that? Is that like 2 blocks?
It's,
We don't know.
I can't tell from the...
We can't.
But
It's not very...
I can get back to you on it, because we also have the south part of Watt from Elkhorn to A Street, those are two different projects that are supposed to be started pending funding. So it's on the list, but like Sue said, we don't want to promise that they're going to get started because, you know, a wrench always seems to find its way into the gears. So we want you to know that it is on the radar. We are working on it. It's just pending funding. So.
Okay, you have a question? Okay, we have a question up here.
So I've got a concern, I guess the main thing is the potential impact on Lerdo. I just found out about a plan, well, basically Roseville's planning on building a huge new industrial park that would be just off Fittyman. I talked to you guys about it on email.
Yep.
And I got as far with your staff as finding out that Sacramento County's planning department had no idea, hadn't been contacted, hadn't been involved. The EIR, I've only read the executive summary, so I'm not an expert in it, but the EIR seems to be only looking at the immediate impacts in Roseville and not considering the fact that the main way to get to what they're building will be straight up Walerga to fitting in. And I'm thinking that Walerga, I drive that a lot because my son lives up there, so that road is Walerga's getting really messed up from the storms. There's all the new part of the road is just like there's pieces. Chunks of stuff. I'm just worried that this is going to really impact us and we're not included in how it's being evaluated, and I'm wondering what has to happen to get Sacramento County planning people looking at the potential impacts or involved in the discussion, or how do we get the EIR to include us?
We're aware, and that's a common problem for forever. It wouldn't. They're not worried about our cost on our roads, but those lines, they're there, but they don't really divide us, right? Your point is well taken. The county's aware of those situations along the outlying areas of the county that abut into a brand new Roseville, super beautiful everything.
Right?
And so over time, we'll have to address those, but we're aware of it. But there's not enough money for all the roads, and so but at some point it will have to be addressed. And if you see potholes, report them to 311. You know about 311, right? Yeah. Or if you're tired and don't want to, call my office and we'll help you.
Okay. So there's no way to get our planning department to have input into that, or?
We don't work. They do studies on that EIR, I'm sure, and so they're doing studies, but they're not. We can't control what they're doing in their jurisdiction.
Even if it has an impact on us.
We work together. We're part of SACOG, which is a 6-county board. It's a regional. We try to work together on things, but I don't know of any county or city that's going to hold up progress in their city just because someone else can't keep up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I was just thinking we should be considered in the environmental impact because it's going to have an impact.
I'm sure we are. I'm sure the traffic patterns are coming and going. I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
I just have to work with my son to do it through Roseville, I think, because that's where he lives. Sounds like.
Yeah.
We don't have a voice.
We could we can comment, but we can't say, well, you can't build that road because it's going to cause more traffic on our road. It's if they're
progress.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And we're almost going to have to wrap up.
I have a suggestion and a concern.
Okay.
The suggestion is, especially in front of the Walmart, there's a very narrow divide between the two roads, but we have panhandlers out there all the time. In another county or somewhere around, I saw they put fiberglass stakes that were like 18, 24 inches, about every foot, where it was really narrow, making it almost impossible for anybody to be able to walk up and down there. So all of a sudden they couldn't stand there to panhandle. You might want to think about doing that someplace. The other concern I have is that in the Firestone Park, along with all the other parks, we have a real graffiti problem, and it's not getting addressed. It just I've got literally 20 pictures of different graffiti that has now been addressed, but it was on all the road, metal.
How did you report it? Did you report it to 311? 311, the graffiti, they're very responsive.
Do you know about
I've used them.
311?
I've called it in a dozen times.
You can, there's an app on 311 that you can take a
I sent
picture and it
pictures
sends the
sent it in.
GPS.
And I've also
Okay.
given it to the park district, who runs that particular.
Is it in the Sacramento County?
Yes, it's Firestone Park. It's right south of Olive Grove School, right off of Olive
Sunrise Park District.
Oh,
So the
Sunrise
Sunrise
Rec
Park
and Park,
District.
okay. Well, if you're not getting, did you not get a response from Sunrise Rec and Park?
But they're working on it, that's the problem. They're working on it, but it keeps
Because they're
coming back.
usually really good.
Yeah, since two of the board members are sitting here.
Yeah.
It's being, there's a bunch
Oh, you're both board members?
Board members, yeah.
Well, here's the board members, I would complain to these guys. These are the guys you want to talk to.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
They are good. They are.
So get out some fixed caliber handguns.
All right, I think we're losing the crowd. We better end the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for your comments. Oh, let's do it. You're welcome. Thank you.
No, and